So let's define the traditional and the contemporary. For the traditional, we have the culture-bound realistic and art representation and limited structures. However, sa contemporary art naman, focus on the message to the audience, styles not bounded by any rules, challenges also for the artist. Bakit? So, si traditional kasi, culture-bound siya. Meaning, mas ina-emphasize niya yung mga parang sa fine arts, 'di ba? Ah, yung details, ganun siya magawa. Where on the other hand, for the contemporary, nagpo-focus siya sa gusto niyang ibigay na mensahe para sa kanyang audience. So, kaya nga, more on for the society pag sinabi ang contemporary. For art representation naman, ito ay kung ano ang gustong ipakita ng mismong artist. Meaning, naka-structure siya kung anong gustong representation ng mismong artist. On the contemporary naman, styles are not bounded by any rules. Walang rules para sa atin for the contemporary. Dahil kung ano ang magiging interpretasyon mo, yun ang masasabi mong art nung artist. Now, limited structures. Dahil nga, for the traditional, it's limited structures. Dahil nga, nakaano sila ng kung ano ang gusto nilang ipakita sa iyo. On the other hand, for the contemporary, challenges ito for the artist. Challenge for the artist. Dahil pinakikita niya o pinasasalamin niya kung ano ang gusto niyang gustong makita ng mismong tao na bilang ikaw, kung ikaw ang titingin sa sining niya. Ba na-develop ang sining natin sa pangkasalukuyan? So, I have the diagram here. So, mula sa ethnic art, yun ang meaning sa essentials sa buhay. Okay? Lumako naman tayo sa Islamic art. Na-create naman dito ang geometric designs. Pagdating naman sa Spanish era, mas na-create naman ang faith and Catholicism, religion of Catholicism. Next, pagdating naman ng American era, doon pumasok ang secular form of art. Nung nasa Japanese era naman, inadapt na natin ang Asian characteristic. Then, sa modern era, nagkaroon na tayo dahil malaya na tayo, nagkaroon na tayo ng national identity. From the present time, pumasok naman na tayo sa contemporary era. Now, social realism. Pinapakita sa ating tunay na kalagayan ng ating bansa, real situation, and the freedom of speech on a particular issue. For the next learning objectives, classify various art forms in the Philippines, identify the different contemporary art form and practices or initiatives from the regions, appreciate contemporary art forms and practices. Various contemporary art forms and their practices from the various regions. Art plays a significant part in the rich cultural identity of the Philippines. It is a mirror to the Filipino people, history, its tradition, and the country as a whole. The diverse art form in the different parts of the archipelago, when integrated, will give a clear picture of what kind of country the Philippines is and what kind of people the Filipinos are. These art forms developed from the early times continue to evolve up to the present. From the ethnic tradition, it continues to progress to contemporary art tradition. For the arts, we have the visual arts, music, dance, architecture, film, and literature. For the visual arts, in the American period, education was introduced to the Philippines. There were Filipinos who studied abroad and influenced the art making in the country. We have Juan M. Arellano, who are the architect for the National Museum. Next is Diosdado Lorenzo, the ability of art to be the timeless. A painting could fix a scene in memory, and the masterpiece could be the means of immortality. We also have Victoria Edades. His famous painting was the sketch. He led the revolutionary 13 moderns who engaged in their classical compatriots in heated debate over the nature and function of art. He was named a national artist in 1976. For the literature, in the field of poetry during the contemporary period, publication of young poets to the campus journal emerged. For the music, during an early American period, the music to the country was mostly classical due to the influence of the European. This kind of music continued to flourish until 1960s. It was in the 1960s that the avant-garde music emerged. The Philippine music at that time evolved into the combination of classical, traditional, and ethnic music. Dance. During the first years of the American period, vaudeville or vaudeville dancing became popular. Vaudeville is a kind of stage show introduced by the American dances like buck and wink, tap dancing, clog, skirt dancing were among of the dances being performed in the show. Architecture. In the American colonial and contemporary period, the Philippine architecture adopted a modern Western architectural style while taking into consideration the physical and social cultural situation of the country. The Philippine architecture was characterized as simple, rational, and functional. The film industry in the Philippines started in 1897 through the initiatives of the foreign businessmen. Swiss entrepreneurs were the first to feature film shows in Manila. The film became popular in 1912 when foreigner Edward Grost and Harry Brown produced a film about the life of Dr. Jose Rizal. This started filmmaking in the country, and each art forms have significant developments in the contemporary period. The artist thirst for innovation, the social, economic, and political environment, and emerging new technologies are among the factors of arts and the influence the development of these contemporary art forms. There was original initiatives taken to develop and to promote a contemporary art in the Philippines, like the establishment of art groups and conduct of different
So let's
art
explore
fairs
the various
and
contemporary art
workshops.
forms and their practices from the various regions. In the picture, you will see the Gigantes of Angono. The Gigantes is a sculpture made of paper mache. This paper mache in the native town of Paete, Laguna calls it taka. The Gigantes measure 4 to 5 feet in diameters and 10 to 12 feet in height. The Gigantes represent mag-anak or family in the Filipino culture, a father, a mother, and the children. The Gigantes is one of the main attraction in the annual festival of Angono Rizal in honor of Saint Clement, patron saint of the fisher folks, held every 23rd of November. This art form may have started during the Spanish colonial time, but the love of the family among Filipinos have made this art form a part of Filipino tradition and distinct Philippine contemporary art. So this is the example of the visual arts that are art forms such as painting, drawing, printmaking, sculpture, ceramic arts, photography, video, filmmaking, design crafts, and architecture. So many artistic disciplines such as performing arts, conceptual art, textile art also involve aspect of the visual art as well as the arts in the other time. So moving on, let's move to the sculpture. Sculpture is as defined as the practice in the Philippine contemporary art made of use of different materials like the variety of woods, metals, and stones. Some produce creative work using plastic, jade, brass, and other materials. In the picture, you will see the manunggol jar. The manunggol jar, it is a secondary burial jar excavated from the Neolithic burial site in the Tabon Caves at Lipun Point in Palawan. The manunggol jar is widely acknowledged to be one of the finest Philippine pre-colonial artwork ever produced, and it's considered a masterpiece of Philippine ceramics. The two prominent figures at the top of the handle of its cover represent the journey of the souls to the afterlife. It is made of clay with some sand and soil. Pottery stands among one of the most ancient art in the Philippines. In the next picture, the Bohol blood compact sculpture was made by the national artist Napoleon Abueva, a Boholano himself. This Sikatuna Legazpi blood compact is considered as the first treaty of friendship between the two different races, religions, cultures, and civilization. It was the treaty of friendship based on respect and equality. This event is commonly known as Sandugo. Today, tourists can reach and view the Bohol Blood Compact site in Barangay Bohol, Tagbilaran City, Bohol, Philippines. This particular site was made in the honor of the very important event in the Philippine history done between Miguel Lopez de Legazpi of Spain and Raha Sikatuna of Bohol. Let's move on to painting. Painting is the practice of applying pigment suspended in the carrier, or what you call medium, and the binding agent or glue to the surface that supports such as paper, canvas, or wall. Painting is also used to express spiritual motifs and ideas. Sides of this kind of painting range from artwork depicting mythological figures on pottery to the Sistine Chapel and to the human body itself. So in the picture, you will see the painting, the title Planting Rice. In the history of painting in the Philippines, Fernando Amarsolo y Cueto was one of the most important artists. Amarsolo was a portraitist and a painter of rural Philippine landscape. He is popularly known for his craftsmanship and mastery in the use of light source. Sorry for that. So, Bigas is an artwork of Nestor Lainez. Magic realism refers to the style in a painting showing minute detail of the subject and highlighting their textures and color. Genre painting is showing the lives of the town folks, legends, and tradition that states in the Philippine contemporary period. In the next picture, you will see the masterpiece of Carlos Botong Francisco, the Bayanihan. It is depicted and the resilience of the Filipino people in times of need, adversity, and disaster. It showed that the true character of the Philippine folks as this distinct human race. Another one of Carlos Botong Francisco great artwork is the Filipino struggle through history that has recently been unveiled for the public viewing after 4 years of restoration. This artwork hailed him the greatest muralist of our country. So, mural is as any piece of artwork painted or applied directly on a wall, ceiling, or other permanent surfaces. A distinguishing characteristic of mural painting is that the architectural elements of the given space are harmoniously incorporated into the picture. Next is the decorative arts. Are arts or craft whose object is the design and manufactured of the object that are both beautiful and functional. It includes interior design, but not usually architecture. Cloth weaving is one of the most valuable living traditions that are still preserved until this day. Is a cloth weaving. Beginning in the pre-colonial era, the art of cloth weaving, particularly in the Cordillera tribes in the north, still lives, notwithstanding the threat of the more practical production of fabrics today. Native practices black straps, looms, and create blankets and piece of clothing. So that's it. We have the tinalak, a deep brown abaca-based cloth tie-dyed with intricate design. Tinalak is a weaving tradition of the Tiboli people of South Cotabato, Philippines. One of the best Filipino craftsmanship that lives until this present day. The traditional female weavers are known as dream weavers because of the patterns of their tinala cloth are inspired by their dreams. Piña cloth is also created through the looms everywhere in the province of Antique. It is a fine and elegant hand-woven fabric that is produced from the fibers of pineapple plants. It is commonly used in the well-known Barong Tagalog, the traditional Philippine cloths. For the Filipino men, Barong Tagalog has become a popular formal attire not only in the Philippines but even across the different regions. Jewelry making is another demonstration of the skilled craftsmanship of Filipinos that dates back during the pre-colonial period. This is evident in the pictures of our great ancestor in our history. Even then, it is presumed that jewelry making in the country already exists. The use of gold and silvers in the forms of earrings, bracelet, rings, brooch, necklaces, tie, pins, pendant, and the cufflinks. The Philippine architecture adopted the modern Western architectural style while taking into consideration of the physical and psycho-cultural situation of the country. The Philippine architecture was characterized as simple, rational, and functional in the early 20th century. Of the young Filipinos who studied in American universities and institutes were back to the country and brought the changes in the Philippine architecture. Among them were Juan Arellano, Carlos Barreto, and Antonio Toledo. And one of the structures built during this period was the Metropolitan Theater. The chalet is a type of house developed in the early 20th century, designed with a front porch made of wood and concrete. During this time, steel was used in buildings as protection for calamities like earthquake. During the Marcos era, there has been construction of expressway, convention centers, hospitals, hotels, malls, high-rise buildings, amusement centers, etc. All this comes with technological advancement like escalator, elevators, and air conditioning. In the regional setup, residential houses, churches, public markets, business space stands to imitate the architectural style in the urban. Also, cultural tourism was introduced. Theme parks and resorts were developed in tourist spots like Palawan, Davao, Bohol, Batangas, and other more. Given cultural heritage preservation, heritage towns like Vigan, Intramuros, Dapitan, etc. were given attention. So in the picture, you will see the Vigan, Ilocos Sur, Philippines. Literature is any body or collection of written work. More restrictively, literature refers to writing considered to be an art form of many single writing deemed to have an artistic or intellectual value, and sometimes deploys language in ways that differs from ordinary usage. Literature in the contemporary period has oscillated between personal expression and social commentary. In vernacular poetry, the two tendencies can be seen at work. In the picture, Bagay is a form of the poetry that uses colloquial language, and it is built on a concrete image which tends to describe tendency. The Bagay movement were a group of young poets that emerged during the contemporary period in the publication campus journals. Poet Jose F. Lacaba, Rolando Tino, Benevenido Lombera, Antonio Samson, and Edmundo Martinez started this Bagay movement. Spoken word is a poetic performance art that is word-based. It is an oral art that focuses on the aesthetic of the wordplay, such as intonation and voice inflections. During an American period, The music of the country is mostly classical due to the influence of the European. It was in the 1960s that avant-garde music emerged into a combination of classical, traditional, or ethnic music. As the time goes by, the introduction of radio, films, and other entertainment technology, the theater music gradually declined. However, the rondallas and the string band remain even up to the present. The Philippine music continue to evolve, and the Pinoy pop of the Filipino pop music took place. Pinoy pop covers different forms like jazz, dance hits, folk songs, revivals, rock and roll, rap, etc. With the development of Pinoy pop, Manila Sounds was born. This music was Western derived with the English lyrics, but with the pure Filipino spirits. Later, the original Filipino music became popular. The OPM was followed by another form. Theater of the theater is a collaborative form of performing art that uses live performers, typically actors and actresses, to present the experience of a real or imagined event before the live audience in a specific place, often a stage. The performers may communicate this experience with the audience through the combination of gestures, speech, songs, music, and dance. Elements of the art such as painted scenery and the stagecraft such as lighting are used to enhance the physicality, presence, and the immediacy of the experience. Philippine dance has played a tremendous role in the Filipino culture. From the oldest dated dances called the tinikling, the other folkloric dances such as the bandago, cariñosa, and subli, and even to the more modern-day dances like the ballet, or no doubt that the dance in the Philippine setting has integrated itself in the society over the course of many years, and is significantly embedded in culture. Each of these dances originate in the unique way and serve as a certain purpose, showcasing how diverse Philippine dances are. In the picture, we have the tinikling, a traditional Philippine folk dance which originated during the Spanish colonial era. The dance involves two people beating, tapping, and sliding bamboo pole on the ground and against on each other in coordination with one or more dancer who step over in between the poles in a dance. Cariñosa is Philippine dance of colonial era, origin from the Maria Clara suite of Philippine folk dance, where the fan and the handkerchief plays an instrumental role and is plays a couple in romance scenario. And that's the end of our lesson. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned.